What is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk. Today, my name is Sunil, and we have a very, very special guest. The man, the myth, the legend, Jesse. Jesse, we finally made it. We've been doing shows on your channel for about a month now. You've been pushing me. Finally made the channel and finally got you to be on, man. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Listen, I can't push you to make a channel every single time that we talk and then be like, nah, man, I can't make it. I don't think it works that way. So yes,
Right.
as soon as you extend the invite, I'm definitely here. You know, I'm going to do anything I can to support you. So let's do this thing.
I appreciate it, man. And usually when people see us together, we're usually talking MMA, but we thought we'd do a little bit something different, even though there is a lot of great MMA stuff to talk about. But we'll save that for a couple weeks when we do our show on your channel. But we're talking 49ers, man, and a lot's been going on. Obviously, training camp has been going on, so we got a lot to talk about there. But there was some breaking news that happened today. The 49ers went ahead and signed Jordan Matthews, but not at receiver. He's officially signed as a tight end. So I know people have been talking about this. He'd been working out with George Kittle and in his tight end crew and whatnot. How do you feel about this pickup? Do you really read anything into it, or do you think it's just a camp body at this point?
No, I definitely don't think it's necessarily a camp body. I mean, Pruitt went down with an injury. And Jordan Matthews, I mean, he's been on this team multiple times, just as a depth piece, right, at receiver. Mm-hmm. And then we saw him make an appearance at Trey Lance's pro day, his second pro day, I believe.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, Shanahan likes him. That's a good thing. And he's familiar with him. And the fact that he has switched positions, I got to admit, when I heard about Benjamin and then Matthews putting on weight and going to tight end. Well, Benjamin probably had to lose weight to go to tight end, but Matthews putting on weight to go to tight end. I was kind of like, man, I low-key want one of these guys on our team just to see if it works, because they're decent receivers. And if they can be, I don't know, use some of that quickness, some of that route running and convert successfully at tight end, it's something I'm interested in. So, maybe it's nothing huge. It may not be the most groundbreaking thing, but at the end of the day, I'm excited that we actually got one of these hybrid guys, and I'm curious to see how it works. And I hope it works really, really well, because I can just think, you look at what Jordan Reed brought to this team, or was supposed to bring to this team, and him and Kittle never really got to match up. Well, listen, if we can get it in Matthews and we can get it in Kittle together, that could be a little dynamic duo over the middle. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and it kind of tips Shanahan's hand at what he's looking for out of the tight end position. We got a guy like Ross Dwelly there, mm-hmm. who doesn't seem to get utilized that much, and I think it's because Kyle Shanahan is looking for maybe a more dynamic receiver. And Jordan Matthews coming in probably has to learn maybe some things about playing tight end as far as the blocking schemes and so on and so forth. But he automatically already becomes one of the top pass catching tight ends in the league, right? Because he's been doing that his whole career at a pretty decent clip. He isn't necessarily never been like the elite receiver, but he's always been a highly productive receiver, somebody that could fit in at all three positions and be kind of your possession receiver. So that skill set moving to tight end, especially with, the dynamic offense that we expect to see out of the 49ers coming up, it could be extremely intriguing. If they could get both guys on the field at the same time, that would be great. But it could be also an insurance policy in case George Kittle does go down. At least we have a pass-catching tight end, right, that we were lacking last season. When Jordan Reed was able to play, he ate. He played really well, but unfortunately he got injured very quickly in the season as well. So it could be more like a depth piece. If he does make the team, it makes sense as far as giving that pass catching ability at the tight end position, which it seems like, Shanahan really, really has been looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting that Pruitt goes down, they bring him in. And from my understanding, Pruitt was he's more of a true tight end. He can block, pass catch a little bit, but he's mainly there to be a blocker. And now you lose a blocker, but you bring in a receiving tight end. So
Right.
I really do think that Jordan Reed is the perfect mold second tight end that he wants. And you're right, he tipped his hand a little bit last year, and so let's hope that Matthews can fit that role, permanently for a couple years.
For sure, for sure. And our biggest fan, Amin the Dream. Let's go. I love watching Jesse and Sunil talk sports, but you know what would love more Jesse and Sunil in the ring. This guy's steady trying to get us to fight.
Listen, we're not ring girls. I mean, we just like to watch MMA.
Yo, man. You got to give us an update on that 49er reporter thing, bro. We need to hear about that sooner or later.
He didn't get it, man.
What?
Yeah. So, I mean, I saw his Twitter and I guess he didn't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, just for a second, they messed up big time. Like, who else are you going to get better than Amin? You're talking about a kid who has his own YouTube channel. You know where I think you messed up, Amin? I'm just being real with you. You said that you call into Grant's show all the time. Grant is not the most like guy, I believe, in 49er land, at least from a PR standpoint. And that might have been your downfall.
Could be.
To be real with you.
And maybe, I wouldn't be surprised if the kids end up being family members of some people on the staff and whatnot. But hey, I mean, you still got your followers, and we still tune it in all the time. So, keep doing what you're doing.
Listen, in 10 years, none of this crap's going to matter. You're going to be at 30,000 followers and making money straight out of high school. So whatever.
That's great. So let's get into what, I kind of wanted to bring you on for in the first place. So Shanahan and Lynch had a very interesting press conference about a week ago now. I guess it was Monday or Tuesday. And pretty adamant, on there not being a QB competition. And it was with more vigor than I had ever seen before. Some of the language and some of the quotables that were mentioned, stuff like there is no rookie that can take the position away from Jimmy G, and things like that were being said. And, Shanahan obviously is putting up this, at least the message saying that Jimmy G is the starter and there is no QB competition, and kind of to the point where it seems like Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the week 1 starter. However, I've been reading your Twitter and knowing you as a person, I don't think you're buying this. So why don't you discuss and tell us a little bit about why you don't believe Shanahan, and maybe if you could go into Shanahan's mind, why you think he's putting on this front right now?
Okay, so let me spin this for a second. Let's say you didn't watch the press conference, right? And I think a lot of people are in this scenario, and they read the 2 quotes, and the 2 quotes were simply this: Jimmy is our best QB in the building right now. We will start training camp that way. The second one was, there is not an open competition right now in terms of getting equal reps with the same group. Jimmy is coming in as the 1, and Trey is coming in the 2, or as the 2. So you read those things and you're like, oh, done. Like that's it, right? But what if the quotes that everybody took were these 2, and you tell me if this changes your mind? The first one is, if someone ever looks like they give us a better chance to win, we will make that decision then. And then the second one was a question that said, how do you feel about no rookie ever winning a quarterback? Does that sway, or winning a Super Bowl? Does that sway your decision? And his answer was this: that does not enter my mind at all. I'm just looking at our situation. Who gives you the best chance to win? I told Jimmy that if he's at the top of his game, no rookie can take his job. From what I have seen so far, he is getting there. It is early. That was OTAs. We will see how training camp goes, and we will deal with it accordingly. If those were the 2 quotes you read, how would you feel about everything?
That leaves room, right? It's basically, the statement is, as we see right now, the situation is a certain way, but we expect things to change, and there are things that we need to see before we make an official decision. That's kind of what I get from that.
Right. So That's just it. Everybody took these 2 quotes. They popped them up all over social media. Most people probably didn't actually watch the press conference. They didn't know the context. And the context was really Matt Mayoko pressing Shanahan. Okay, well, let me follow up. Does that mean that there is no competition? And he's like, well, listen, right now there's not. Jimmy's the one. So the way that I see it is he did not speak in absolutes. And we talked about this when it came to the MMA thing, but you've got to really pay attention to those words he chose. Right now, we'll see. As things come, we'll take care of them, right? So that really tells me. And then you look at it, and I don't know if I've got a clear starting QB, I'm pretty sure he'd be taking more than 11 passes each day of training camp, 3 days through. That's all he's taking every day. And if I have a clear backup, he certainly isn't taking 10 passes to my starting quarterback's 11. So to me, I just think it's a very clear, open competition. And I saw what you said, and I think this was absolutely brilliant. I know you said it a while back, but I'm going to reiterate it. You said something along the lines, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something along the lines of, from this point on, now that we know the 49ers have made the trade to 3, they're getting a quarterback, there will be not a bad thing said about Jimmy G because they want to boost his value if that opportunity comes along. And if that rookie quarterback, whoever it is, wins the starting job, well, we want to know that it was going against the best Jimmy G. So there is no reason to say anything bad about Jimmy G right now.
Right.
It's all about boosting his trade value and boosting the confidence of either Jimmy G if he wins a starting job or Trey Lance if he wins a starting job, because if he beats out the best Jimmy G, well, then we have nothing to worry about. So
for sure. And I think a lot of the guys agree with you. Big drip Nick. Hey, that's a nice beard, man. I'm a little bit jealous, but of course there is a competition. We agree. Pinor is saying there is no battle. Lance is already the chosen one. The second dynasty is on its way. Starting week 8 when Lance beats Fields. Quote me on that. Okay, Pinor, we're definitely gonna quote you on that. And yeah, I mean, I think it's very interesting. The two, I guess, versions of Shanahan's opinion on Jimmy, right? So it seems like everybody has forgotten about how Shanahan has spoken about Jimmy the last few years, right? Can you imagine a quarterback taking you to the Super Bowl and you still flirting with other quarterbacks that same offseason? Like, that's like you telling your girlfriend, this is or my wife, this was the best year ever, but I'm still gonna go on a date with this chick. You know what I mean? It's like those two things just don't make sense.
Can I give you another one,
please?
And this is what I said to somebody on Twitter. They're like, well, listen, I mean, he's clearly saying that Jimmy's the guy. Everybody knows Jimmy's the guy. And I responded, I said, listen, if my girl goes all over social media and tells every single one of you how much she loves me, are you going to believe that? Or are you going to believe it that every time she leaves out of town, she cheats on me? Which one are you going to go with? Are you going to go with what she says or what she does? Because I'm going to say that if she cheats on me every chance she gets, then she probably doesn't love me no matter how much she says it on social media. Right?
Absolutely. And it's kind of comical at this point because, the 49ers were linked to every single quarterback that was available this offseason. And not just through the media, but also Shanahan talked about how disappointed he was that Matthew Stafford went to the Rams, right? And then in the same breath, he's so passionately talking about how there's not anybody no rookie that could beat Jimmy G out on a playing field, and that the best Jimmy G is our starting quarterback, and so on and so forth. It just is completely just to elevate his value. But what's more interesting, I don't know if you've noticed this, and some people on Twitter have seen this, has said this. It seems like the memo has gotten out to the media because they're not showing. Remember, like, I think somebody in here said, Pinor said, Jimmy isn't a good practice player. And it's true. I remember last season, or maybe there was the season before, Jimmy threw like 5 interceptions in a practice, and we haven't seen any bad Jimmy throws. Nobody's talking about a bad Jimmy throw. Jimmy hasn't thrown any interceptions, but we have insiders that are telling us Jimmy has thrown interceptions, but it's not coming in the media, and it's like, this is interesting. The media has never had a problem with telling us everything that Jimmy does, good or bad, and a lot of bad, right? They usually tell us a lot of bad that comes out of Jimmy G practices, but this time it's quite interesting. There's no bad news about Jimmy Garoppolo, and it seems to me that there has been a very strict message. No bad Jimmy G news. Talk about his fieriness. Talk about the leadership. Talk about all this stuff that all of a sudden in week 4 of Jimmy Garoppolo, he's this newfound kind of person. People don't change like that, especially football players, especially starting quarterbacks don't all of a sudden become, this new person. And to me, it's pretty blatant, Jesse. I don't know. I mean, I think you agree with me as well, but this is definitely a move to keep people believing that he could be a really good starting quarterback. And, we hear about an injury with Carson Wentz with the Colts. Houston doesn't really have a very good starter. Denver's always looking for a starting quarterback now that Aaron Rodgers is no longer somebody that's available for Denver. Maybe they look at another quarterback that's been in the Super Bowl, which is Jimmy Garoppolo. There's some people out there that might bite if they continue to keep everything positive coming out about Jimmy Garoppolo.
I love a good conspiracy theory. And the fact that not only are they doing that, not talking anything bad about Jimmy, but when they're showing Trey Lance highlights, they're not showing who threw the ball. They're just showing the ball landing perfectly where it needs to go.
Right.
And then they're telling you, all I know is that I heard that Trey Lance threw a jump ball up the sideline to George Kittle, which means that's a 50-50 ball. Yet when you see the actual video, of course it's cut up. You don't see who threw it. It's a dime with a cornerback who had his back turned to the offense, and he just got flat out beat by a very good pass and a well-placed ball that was not thrown by Jimmy G. So, yes, absolutely. There's definitely something going on. It's smart. I mean, I agree with it. This is sheer genius. This is a great way to spin things. And, I'm sure that they would love for everybody to write amazing things and say amazing things about Jimmy G, because it definitely does help the national spin. But, we got to be honest about what's going on. And what's going on is Jimmy ain't that good. And Jimmy still can't throw outside the numbers. And Splash Cousin said it yesterday. The very first thing Grant asked him on the show was, hey, so what are your thoughts on Jimmy? And he goes, yeah, so he threw an out pattern to the left about 10 yards downfield, cross from one hash to the other, and he skipped past it to him because he can't get the ball there. Same old Jimmy to me, man. Yeah. Same old Jimmy. So
absolutely. And I mean, we both, and we're going to talk about it going into this next topic, but, Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup quarterback really doesn't do any favors to Jimmy, nor does it do any favors to the 49ers. And something that's really interesting to me, and maybe I don't follow training camp as much. This is the first year that I'm really following it more. I know you do a little bit more than me, Jesse, but Josh Rosen is getting a lot of publicity in my eyes. Seems like he's throwing a lot of balls, and I don't know if that's normal for the third string quarterback to get as many opportunities as he is, but it seems to me they're really trying to bring him along, and it means more. Maybe they're looking for him to maybe be the backup versus, the third string. I don't know if you have any opinions about that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that, listen, if the right trade offer comes to San Francisco, they will trade Jimmy in a heartbeat. Okay. And I think that they're afraid of just outright cutting him. I know that we would, hey, listen, cut him. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. Cut him, go after this player, do this, whatever. Like, it's easy for us to say, right. But they have a locker room to manage, and they need to make sure that the rookie does beat out the quote unquote veteran starter who was supposed to be the day one guy, the one that the team rallies behind, and just make sure that that's a clear thing so that there is no hearts broken in the locker room. And it's a good spin to the media. And obviously, they're going to try to get something for Jimmy G. But yeah, man, they got to figure it out. Can Rosen be a backup? Can Sudfield be a backup? I think the answer is no on that one. But yeah, they have to figure it out. Absolutely. And so, they've got to know what they have going into it. And I'll say this, I don't know what Rosen brings to the table, but I can pretty much guarantee you that Lance and Rosen is better than Jimmy and Mullins. And that's where I'll leave it.
I agree with you. And I think that I was talking to Ben earlier this week, and he was talking about we were talking about, is this 49ers situation mishandled? And I said it's to be determined. I really agree with you as far as Jimmy's contract needs to be off of the books, but if they don't get any assets for him, I think that's a mismanaged situation. Just because, a year ago, you probably could have got a first rounder for him. So to go all the way from a first rounder down to nothing, I think is a really would be really bad news. And I think that's why the 49ers are holding on as well, is because that's a hard pill to swallow, that you aren't getting any assets for someone who definitely could have got you at least a first back in the day, and should be able to get more. And as we're just talking about maybe likely destinations, Pino is bringing up, what do people think the Colts want to trade for an overrated, overpaid, injury-prone QB, or lose on purpose and get themselves a stud QB who is cheap? Now, let's take all of the kind of slanted language, but what would you take right now, or what do you think would be a reasonable offer that you would take for trading Jimmy Garoppolo?
You don't want my opinion, because listen,
let's say, what do you think the most you could get for him at this point?
Right now, as we speak right now, and I'm not saying that this can't go up, right? Mm-hmm. But I just look at the landscape. I get Wentz just went down, but the Colts would really have to clear some space to make Jimmy G happen, right? And we also don't know the extent of the injury as it sits right now. It may be a 1 week injury. It may be a 3-month injury. We don't know. So with that being laid out, knowing that Watson's most likely going to get traded, so teams like the Broncos, the Washington football team, maybe the Eagles, Giants, they're looking at Watson as option number one. And then knowing that only 3 teams, the Jets who have a rookie quarterback, the Jags who have a rookie quarterback, and the Broncos, who we just mentioned, would definitely want Watson. Those are the only 3 teams that can outright, straight across, trade a pick and bring Jimmy back in return without having to mess anything up with their salary to make that work. So with that being said, I would say a 4th is probably the best that they could get right now.
That's what Pinor says.
Pinor, my guy. Yeah, I would say a 4th is probably the best they can get right now.
Yeah, and maybe a conditional, something that could turn into something better if he plays and hits certain benchmarks and things like that. Mm-hmm. I agree with you, and I think if they get an offer for anything, I'm pretty sure they take it. I think they're just waiting for an offer. I don't think they've gotten any offers, and if they get an offer, I think they just want any assets, any picks, 4th or 3rd, whatever they could get. I think they move on for it. So somebody that's been getting some pretty high praise, some really great videos are coming out, is Brandon Ayuk. And I think that he just did a press conference today or was answering questions where he talked about wanting to be more involved in the special teams game and returning punts. So it's looking that Ayuk wants to take on a bigger role with the team. In my opinion, he's already wide receiver number 1. I think he's a better pure receiver than Debo, even though Debo is one of my favorite players. But seeing what you've been seeing with the flashes we saw last year, and what he's bringing to training camp this season, how good do you think Ayuk could be?
Man, I think Ayuk can be a bona fide top 8 receiver in this league for a long time, and have flashes, Pro Bowl, that type of stuff pretty regularly. I think the world of Ayuk. I think that he has the frame, he has the route running, he has the speed, he has the smarts, and Debo talked about it. The one thing that he had issues with is his initial break, getting off the press and getting off the line in a quick manner, and everything else was perfect. Well, Debo's praising him for picking that up. And that's one thing that Debo is fantastic at. Debo certainly is not the route runner Ayuk is, but if you put him one on one and you put him in a press situation off the line, he is getting off the line. And that's something that Ayuk needed to work on, and he's doing a good job of it right now. You get him a solid quarterback. I think this year he can go for 1,200 plus, and then after that, the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. And I think with young receivers, we've seen a lot transition and do really, really well. And I think Ayuk would have had an even better season last year if it weren't for some of the deficiencies with the 49ers. Obviously, with the quarterback play, he didn't really get a chance to play with the starter that many games because Jimmy G was in and out. And Nick Mullins and Beathard are just not starting caliber quarterbacks. But another key component to a rookie receiver or a young receiver having just an amazing year is having a really strong running game. And that was something also that wasn't there for the 49ers last season. This year, we're expecting both of those things to change, right? We expect Trey Lance to start, which means the QB play is going to be upgraded. And we expect the running game to be a lot stronger. Those two things make me believe that Ayuk is going to be set up to have a really breakout season, just like you said. And I think that Lance's ability to throw the ball down the field is going to open up things for Ayuk, and having just a very strong running game. I think the running game is going to be back in the top 3, and that play action I think is going to be nasty, man. And guys like Kittle, guys like Ayuk, I think are going to just eat because they could finally get a ball that's passed in a bucket 20, 30, 40 yards down the field where they're running down there, last season without knowing that the ball is never going to get to them, right? So I think you're just going to see more urgency, people that are actually fighting to go down the field because they actually expect that the ball might actually get there, which is amazing because we haven't seen that with the 49ers, with Kyle Shanahan, knowing Kyle Shanahan did that a lot in Atlanta. So it's great if we could actually see that component to the offense as well.
Well, I'll say this, and I don't know if you're a fantasy football guy, but I'm just thinking about it in terms of that. If Lance starts, I would stay as far away from Kittle as possible. Kittle's fantastic. I think the best tight end in the league because he's such a great run blocker. He's so tenacious. He runs crisp routes. He had a little bit of a drop issue last year, but that's not normally him. And you get him the ball in open space, he's going to make people miss and punish people. That being said, the arm strength of Lance and his ability to move and keep his eyes downfield, a la Russell Wilson type, to where you put receivers in scramble drill situations, I think both Debo and Ayuk will eat a ton. And of course, Kittle's going to get his, but he's going to have to make a lot of things happen, even more so after the catch in order to eat. He already doesn't get a lot of touchdowns. So listen, if Lance starts, I think those receivers become big, big problems for a lot of teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
And Kittle, don't be disappointed by any means, but he's not going to eat in the way that we're used to him eating.
For sure. And I'm glad you brought up fantasy. I am a big fantasy guy. I actually do a show Wednesday nights at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern with my boy Casey. So definitely tune into that, guys, if you want to get some fantasy takes. Casey's really knowledgeable about that kind of stuff. So way to segue to a plug, my guy. Appreciate you for that. Appreciate you for that. So let's move on. One thing that has been talked about a little bit as well, the 49ers clearly gave up a lot of assets to get Trey. We don't have any first round picks for the next couple of years. However, there's some people on the market right now that could be assets for the 49ers. In your estimation, Jesse, do you feel like the 49ers should be aggressive in the trade market, or do you feel like they should hold on to the assets and think about depth in the future?
Yeah, I think it depends on what's available, right? We talked earlier in the offseason about Julio Jones when he came up. And initially, I was really against it because of the money that I thought he was going to cost. And once I found out it wasn't so much, I was more in on it. But overall, wide receiver to me was more of a luxury position, and so giving up a second round pick was still iffy for me. And I kept reverting back to the secondary. I'm like, listen, you really need to use that second round pick on getting a corner because right now, Verrett's going to be a free agent. K1's going to be a free agent. Mosley's contract is written to where they could basically let him walk. And now we're going to rely that Ambry Thomas and Diamador Lenore are going to be able to be contributors on this roster, which we don't know is a for sure going to happen. And so I say all of that to say if the right corner is available and can be had, yes. If you need to trade that second round pick, if you need to trade a third, a fourth, whatever that looks like, you make that happen because that solves for this year and it solves for the future if it's the right guy. So, yeah, I would say if the right position / player becomes available at that position, you definitely go all in.
So let's talk about it. There's a guy that's requested a trade at a position that you think is a big need for the 49ers that kind of fits what you're talking about. And, I'll let you talk about it. So go off. The corner out of Miami. What do you think the 49ers should do with this situation?
Yeah, so Xavier Howard, right? He's coming off of his first team All-Pro appearance. He's been a Pro Bowler 2 out of the last 3 years. He led the league in interceptions last year. And I think people are going a little crazy with his value. I think when they look at him, they say, well, this is the second best corner in the league. Completely disagree with that. He's top 5 probably, maybe top 7, whatever. He's right in that range. But they think, well, Ramsey netted 2 first rounders. Jamal Adams netted 2 first rounders. It's for sure going to be a first rounder for Howard. And I say, let's pump the brakes for a second and let's look at this realistically. I just told you that he came off of his first All-Pro appearance last year, and he's made the Pro Bowl 2 out of the last 3 years. He's also 28 years old. He's also requested a trade at the absolute worst time for a franchise to get the most back for him. Mm-hmm. And he's gone public with it, and he's told everybody that he wants to get paid. So that new team, knowing that they have to completely restructure things, knowing that he's 28, knowing that he's 2 years removed from a knee injury, and also knowing that Darius Slay, who was 29 a year ago, coming off of 3 straight Pro Bowl appearances and a first-team All-Pro appearance of his own in 2017, got a 3rd and a 5th, I absolutely think that Howard could actually be had for a 2nd and a 4th, and I do that in an absolute heartbeat. It solves the problem for now. It solves the problem for the future. And I look at that and say, if you get a player of Xavier Howard's caliber and you've got a secondary that good, 2 very good safeties, 2 very good corners, actually 3 good corners. K'Waun Williams is a pretty damn good nickel corner. And then you've got Bosa and some of these dogs that we bring on the defensive line with Warner putting everybody in the right position. That's a defense that can go out and win a Super Bowl for any quarterback. And now we know how explosive this offense can and will be under Trey Lance. There's not a team out there on paper that I think is better than the 49ers at that point. I absolutely pull the trigger.
Yeah, and he fits what the 49ers have been trending towards, right? So one thing that we have to be realistic about is the NFC West is a gauntlet for receivers. Mm-hmm. There are no receivers that you can hide a bad corner against. Every single corner has to be able to play big time because they're going to be going up against a big time player. Because every team in the NFC West has 2 players that could be wide receiver 1s on other teams, right? So That's 1. 2, Jason Verrett is kind of like a forgotten guy because I think people just expect him to be injured. I actually think he's going to be healthy. However, he is in a prove it type contract. So he's going to be expecting big money or at least a long-term contract coming out of this. And I think the 49ers will have first dibs because he'll be loyal to the fact that we gave him an opportunity to build back up his persona. But there's going to be competition for that, and he is a little bit older, quote unquote, for the position. So bringing in a guy like Xavier, who is a great guy playing man to man, who is somebody who is a ball hawk, gets a lot of interceptions, which is two things that the 49ers are really looking to move their secondary towards, man to man and turning over the ball a lot more. Him being a little bit younger than Verrett, I think kind of because you're going to have to pay somebody at corner, right? And so why not pay the younger, player that you could get more out of, and then a guy like Ambry Thomas, who I believe is going to be a really good player. If he could show some flashes, and then the 49ers are in a really good situation, right? Because then with Verrett, if they can get him on a deal that makes sense for them, now we have one of the best secondaries for a long time. And if Verrett then walks because, he gets more money from another team, we got Ambry Thomas to slide in there next to Xavier Howard. And now we still have two really good man-to-man cover corners, and we don't take any dips, in that position. And when I'm looking at trading for a corner or trading for a player in any sense, if we give up a second, is that person we pick in the second round going to be as much value as a player that we get? And if you could get a guy like Xavier Howard with your second pick, I mean, you're happy, right? You're happy
because of course you are.
You're getting that type of player. Obviously, the money's there, but I personally don't care about money anymore. I think Parag does an amazing job figuring out ways to get guys under the cap. So we've seen it. We didn't lose a player at all this season because of not having cap flexibility. So I think I'm with you. I think we make that trade, and I think it would be a tremendous asset, and I think it elevates the 49ers' chances to win the Super Bowl immediately, along with Trey starting at quarterback. So I'm with you. Is there anybody else that you see or any other moves that you think the 49ers could pull the trigger for using assets, or is it really just for a cornerback that you think
I would say it's got to be a corner, because the way that I see it now is that second round pick at this point is probably going to be used for a corner next year. So the only reason you give up that spot is to go get a corner. If you give up that second round pick, let's say we would have done it for Julio, right? It would have been great for this year. But next year, when we're looking at it going, we don't have any corners, and now we don't have a pick until round 3, that's a bit worrisome, right? So I say I only feel comfortable if it is a top level corner that I feel like can be good for the next 3 seasons at least.
Yeah. And you look at the other positions that the 49ers have, a lot of the skill positions we're still very young at, and we have guys that we're excited about. So we're in a good position where talent-wise, we have depth at a lot of positions, youth at a lot of positions. So there's not like a pressing need that we need to use our draft picks on. It's just about we could be in a position where we could just take best player available, and Xavier Howard fits that. Like, he's the best player available. Go out, get him. Especially like you said, we could probably get him at a bargain, because if he would have done this before the draft, then we're talking about they probably get a first round out of it or multiple second rounds, something like that. I think that we could get him at a bargain, and he would be a great asset. But the only thing is, I think there's a lot of teams that'll probably go after him as well. So there's going to be competition. The good thing we have on our side is we're not in the same conference. We're not in the AFC. So Miami is probably looking to trade him to a team that they're not going to face, and the 49ers would be that team. So
I think there's 2 teams, just realistically, and I talked about this yesterday. There's 2 teams that realistically would be willing to offer a first round pick for him. One is going to be Kansas City, which, again, they're not going to want to trade him within the AFC, especially to a team like Kansas City if they can avoid it. Because, I mean, listen, you give Kansas City that kind of talent, you're just shooting your Super Bowl dreams in the foot immediately.
Right.
The other team is the Arizona Cardinals. First of all, they need a corner bad. They're looking at the landscape of the NFC West and saying, well, hold up a second. the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Rams all don't have a first round pick next year. Why not spend our first round pick and get a stud and even the playing field a little bit? So, out of all the teams that I look at in the NFL, those are the only two that I could see possibly be willing to give up a first. And even then, I think it's a stretch. I really do believe he's going to go for a second. And I want to touch real quick on the salary cap thing you said, because there's a 49ers salary cap guy on Twitter, and I don't know his name. I don't want to be disrespectful if he sees this. I'm sure he knows a hell of a lot more about the cap than me. I mean, his name and his whole niche is literally talking the 49ers salary cap. That being said, you said something that I said to him earlier, and I still haven't gotten an answer about. He was going in on 49er fans saying, well, we can't afford Xavier Howard, and the 49ers are already over the cap next year without Jimmy, and yada, yada, yada. And I said, that's all fine and dandy, but we know the salary cap is going to go up next year and certainly the year after that. So that means the guys like Bosa and Warner, when his contract really kicks in, Armstead, some of those guys, they're going to be okay, and they're going to be able to fit them under that cap, especially with Trey Lance being so cheap. But even if I'm wrong about that, why don't you riddle me this? Before everything started, I don't know you at all, and I'm sure you're very smart with the cap, but you tell me, before all of this started, this whole offseason, did you think there was any chance that every single player was going to be re-signed, a couple of them to massive contracts? We're talking about the
Trent
highest
Williams.
paid players in the league at their position, including re-signing Warner and keeping Jimmy G. Did you think that was a possibility? I still haven't heard back. So the salary cap, to me, watching the Saints, watching what Parag does, it's play money until it isn't. So
Right.
that's where I'm at with it.
And you look in, it's kind of like a trend now. You look at teams like the Rams, who have been very competitive over, the last years. They're just trading assets, trading the draft picks that are supposed to be, the things that keep your cap space low and all this cap hit low and all this kind of stuff. And they're getting veterans and they're paying them top dollar, and it hasn't seemed to affect them too much, right? They're just continuing to win. And I think, we have to utilize, a team sport is a team, and everybody only focus on the players, which obviously is super important, the most important. But we have an asset in Parag who just seems to understand the cap in a different way. His calculator works different than other people's calculators when it comes to cap. And in a year where the cap came down, right, we still were able to get everybody we wanted, get people that, like a guy like Ebicom, who, is somebody who I think is going to be very vital to our defense next season, and re-sign a guy like Warner, keep him happy, give him, the type of money that he wants. Yep. And we still have this feather in our cap, which is trading away $27 million that we could roll over to next year, right? So for me, everything can be done. It's just about pulling the trigger and making sure it's for the right guy. Does that mean just throw money around? Absolutely not. But we're talking about all pro players that we could bring in at positions of need or at positions that'll elevate our team. I think that's a big move that we could make, and I don't think we should play scared. At this point, we're going for championships. We don't need a warm up. We have the team that we need, and it's about time to go aggressive.
Here's the thing is there's so many ways to push off money too, right? People think about, well, okay, you see what happened with D Ford where they pushed off money to next year. They could do that with Armstead. They could rework even Warner in his first year of his new deal. You can do that with a lot of players, but you can also take that extra $24 million that we can get with Jimmy, 25, whatever it is. And guess what? You can go to Armstead and say, listen, I know that we were going to backload your contract, but we're going to pay you the bag right now this year because we've got extra money, and you're going to be making peanuts for the next 2 years, but it's all going to be equal out to the same. And in fact, that benefits you because guess what? You're guaranteed to get paid now. So if you get injured, you don't have to worry about it. You're good. Or you could say, all right, Xavier, we're going to rework your contract. Guess what? We're giving you all this money up front. We're using that Jimmy G money, giving it to you up front, and you're not going to cost us anything for the next 3 years. There's multiple things that they can do to push off money. Sure. And this new TV deal that's about to come into place, I know that COVID's still a thing. There's the Delta variant, yada, yada, yada. Who knows what's going to happen with the overall money as far as fans in the stands? But they've worked out a massive TV contract. So next year, the cap is guaranteed to go up regardless of what happens. And the year after that, it is going to explode, which means they're going to have money coming out of their ears. Yes, go get Xavier Howard.
And the new kind of strategy is if you have a quarterback on your rookie contract, you have a 5-year window to be extremely aggressive with bringing in talent around that rookie quarterback. Because in 5 years, we know Trey is going to be the highest paid player on the team, right? So we have 5 years to really use this, use the quarterback, a good quarterback on a rookie deal. And, if guys like Xavier and Howard are available, you got to go out there and get them. And I'm with you, man. We're on the same page with that, which usually isn't a thing. Usually isn't a thing. But I do want to say, even though I like Xavier and Howard, this is not slander to Ambry Thomas because I am much higher on Ambry Thomas than most people. I got to throw that in as many streams as possible. Ambry Thomas, come on the show, man. I've been hyping you up a lot. So hopefully you're watching. All right, so let's move on. So obviously, training camp, we just finished the first week. Pretty excited. We get to see the team actually play. Everybody's been there. And obviously, this is a way, way too early time to make opinions and all that kind of stuff. But we're opinion guys, so we're going to give our opinions anyways. So, Jesse, what have you seen out of training camp that you like? And how do you feel about the overall status of the team now that, week 1 is done?
Listen, I am here to opine. So yes, I'm going to give you my opinion. All right. So things that I saw that I like. Listen, I've been saying I've been the biggest Lance fan since before the draft, saying he was going to get picked. And then as soon as he's picked, I'm going, he's starting week 1. Everybody's calling me crazy. Now people are starting to see it a little bit. The fact that he has outplayed Jimmy G through 3 days, regardless of no pads, 11 on 11, 7 on 7, contact. No, I don't care about any of that. He's doing exactly what I expected him to do. So keep doing that, Trey Lance. I love it. The other thing that gets me excited is looking at guys like Bosa, Hurd, and Ford. Ford is the biggest one because I look at this defensive line and I say, if Ford can give us 30% of the snaps this year, this defensive line goes from being top 7-ish to probably the best defensive line in the league. And I look at that 2019 team. That was the identity of that team. I feel like the depth is there right now, especially if D Ford can give us something. And I also know that when D Ford played, Bosa was way better with D Ford than he was without D Ford. And so the fact that he's already doing something is extremely encouraging. I expected nothing from him this year. So I would say my thought and my state about the team right now is if I'm going a 1 to 10, I'm at about a 9.5. And the only reason I'm not at a 10 is Javon Kinlaw. And I know that he sat on his social media and told everybody, I'm not hurt. I'm fine. Everybody's making things up. And people ate that thing up like it was hotcakes.
Right.
But the reality is this man was diagnosed with tendonitis coming out of college. He was told by multiple teams that they were worried because he had early onsets of arthritic knees that they believe would turn into arthritis later. He's had his knee scoped. He missed games because of that knee. And now you're telling me that knee, a healthy knee, swelled up on him for no reason when he was at elevation and he had to sit out 2 weeks without playing. And now he's just trying to get in shape. I'm not buying it. A healthy knee does not do that. Right. And I'm speaking from experience. I've got bad knees. I've got bad ankles. I've got arthritis in all 4 of them. Yeah. And I can tell you what it does to you. And I can tell you what the early onset symptoms are. And I can tell you right now, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I haven't seen his knee. I'm not there. But what I'm hearing, this man has early onset arthritis. I believe it to my core based off of what I know I've gone through and what I've seen other athletes go through, especially in the Portland area where I'm from. Brandon Roy, Greg Oden. This is something I've seen before. It's just a minor procedure. It's just a scope. Yeah, the procedure itself is very minor. But when you have swelling afterwards, and by the way, let's just talk about what a scope of a knee actually means. It means you're going in to clean up cartilage. What does that actually mean? You are removing cartilage from the knee, which now means you're closer than ever to being bone on bone. And when you're nearly 400 pounds at 6'6" and you move the way that he does, you're probably more likely to ruin those knees earlier than not. It is a concern for me. I'm not going to let it get me down to the point to where I'm going to bring this thing real low, 9.5, and it would be at a 10 if I knew that he was fully healthy, but I don't believe it.
Man, to get a 9.5 out of pessimistic Jesse is a good sign, because for a guy like me, that's like a 30 out of 10, right? So that is pretty amazing. I have to agree with you on Kinlaw. It is a disconcerting to see a guy like Kinlaw not play when you're seeing guys like Jalen Hurd make it onto the field. You're seeing guys like D Ford make it onto the field. These are guys that had very, very severe injuries that were able to make it onto the field. So if you're trying to tell us it's not a real injury, it's not anything serious, but you can't get on the field when these other guys are getting on the field, to me, that is something disconcerting. The only thing that I think is okay about it is we have a lot of depth at that position that he plays. So that is something that hopefully, if he is somebody that needs to be eased in and be on a snap count, okay, cool. We have some people that we could rotate in that I feel like can still get us production. Obviously, we feel Kinlaw could get us super production, but in the meantime, we just need to be healthy, get into the playoffs, and let all our horses be revved up in time for the playoffs. Because if this roster can be healthy and playing well in the playoffs, there's not a team that I feel like I would be like we can't beat. And that's including teams like Tampa Bay, Kansas City, because I think we've elevated at the positions of weakness that caused us to lose to Kansas City in the Super Bowl. And, we could beat a team like Tampa Bay, which obviously is bringing back their whole Super Bowl team. So I'm with you, man. I'm very high on the team. Some things that I really liked seeing was how in shape a lot of these guys came. A guy like McGlinchey putting on weight. Bosa doesn't even look like a big dude anymore, man. He's just so lean and
he looks more like his brother, doesn't he?
Yeah, he looks extremely lean, which I think is a concerted effort, right? Because he knows he has issues with, his base. And so taking that weight off, I think is going to help him as far as stay healthier. Seeing a guy like Ayuk make some of those wow catches. And, I think that's amazing because he's, obviously revving it up. I think, Mohamed Sanu, him coming in with the attitude, I think is going to be great, especially with the young receiver core, to have a guy like him who knows the offense.
He wore a sweatshirt that said King Sanu. Yeah, I think he's confident.
So I think that's great. I mean, they're really, the one negative has just been Kinlaw, right? And everything else has been extremely positive. To see our guy Trey Lance get out there and, basically prove that he is, a lot of these rookies, sometimes you say, they have some struggles and all this kind of stuff. And especially with Trey Lance, who didn't play all last season, for him to come out and just be so sharp and showing the reason why he is a first-round draft pick, I mean, it's great. And nobody got injured in the first 3 days. So that's a positive too, man. That's all I'm hoping for through training camp and the preseason. Please, everybody just get healthy into the regular season. So we got a chance to see everything that we got. So all that stuff is good for me, man. I'm extremely excited about the squad. And like you said, D Ford, oh my God, man. Seeing him on there, being able to work out with the team. I was talking with Jack Hammer earlier this week on the show, just what D Ford would do to that defensive line, man. It elevates everybody. I know you said it elevated Nick Bosa, but it also elevates, Armstead. It elevates whoever is going to be. If Kinlaw's there, to elevate Kinlaw. And Jack was talking about even being able to play Ebicom, Bosa, and D Ford at the same time, with Nick Bosa kind of playing more interior and rushing up the middle. Man, that would be scary.
Listen, I'll say this too, about the Kinlaw thing. And, I don't want to make it all doom and gloom with them, because my main statement a couple days ago on him was I do not believe he makes it to contract number 2. Like he doesn't get paid in contract number 2. But what that also means is that he can be productive up to that point, in my opinion. And again, everybody wants to say, well, listen, it would suck if he doesn't make it there, if he busts, whatever. And people are going to be pissed at it because people look at it as Buckner straight across for Kinlaw, and that just wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, what ended up happening was they were able to draft Kinlaw with that pick, but they were also able to keep Armstead and Ward. I get it. If Kinlaw busts, those 3 are still not as good as Buckner, but it's not as bad as what we want to think it is. Let's hope I'm completely wrong on this, but even if I'm not, if he can be productive up until that second contract and things just go awry and his knees are arthritic over time and he's not able to play, he's bone on bone, what have you, it's all good. It's not the end of the world. It would suck a little bit, but the 49ers definitely can bounce back from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have Solomon Thomas in the back of our head, right? Because we've already seen somebody who didn't perform at the level that we expected them to with such a high draft pick. Yeah. He didn't make it to a second contract with the 49ers. So, but I still hope, we still have faith for Kinlaw. He's still young. Obviously we haven't even seen him on the field. It's not, these aren't games that he's missing. It's obviously practice, which is important, but hopefully he could figure it out. Hopefully we can get a couple years out of him. Look, a guy like, I think Panor said, Todd Gurley also has the same type of arthritic knees. He was able to be very productive in his rookie contract at a position that really utilizes that knee a lot.
For sure.
Obviously he's not as heavy as Kinlaw is, but at least he was able to be productive through his rookie contract. So there is hope that maybe Kinlaw can be a productive player. And, we'd love to see it. Great thing is he doesn't necessarily need to be the everything on our defensive line. We have a lot of talent around him. So, that gives him, at least there's not pressure, right? He could just go out there and perform to the maximum that he can. And that'll be good for us as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, man, great first freaking show together on the channel.
Right. It was great. And, I want to appreciate, everybody that tuned in. There's a couple of guys I really want to shout out. Pinor, thank you so much, man. You've been holding it down in the comments. Definitely, telling people to go like it. Waruna also threw a shout out to tell guys to like. Please, guys, I am trying to build this channel and get guys like Jesse on, Jack on, we were able to get Rich Madrid on. So we really want to build this channel, build this community. If you can if you can subscribe, definitely you guys probably already have subscribed to Jesse's channel. But if you haven't, go do that as well. He does a really great job. Not only talking about the 49ers, but both of us like talking about just sports in general. So if you want to learn about NBA, fantasy, MMA, we do that all on both of our channels. It's not just strictly 49ers. But, we're going to talk about the 49ers a lot because that's what brought us all together and the team that we love. So, yeah, anything else you want to shout out? Anything you need to plug, Jesse?
No, I don't want to plug anything, but I do want to give a shout out to Ryan. Ryan's he's in my channel. He's in yours. I saw him today during the press conference saying we want Grant 1,000 times over. Very, very supportive of every single one of us. So he definitely deserves some love. And going back to Amin, my man, I know you didn't get it. Don't be bummed, buddy. You are definitely deserving of that position, and you're going to be better because of it. So keep your head held high, man.
Absolutely. Amin, Ryan, Pioneer, Waruna, everybody that's been in the chat, everybody that didn't do a comment, we still love you too. Guys, feel free to comment in the future. We will love to get you guys on here. Me and Jesse are going to be doing more shows together. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. You guys have a beautiful night. Have a beautiful weekend. Stay safe, stay hydrated. And until next time, keep it so real.